So before starting the step-by-step procedure to draw a 3D mandala, let's discuss about the art supplies that we need for 3D mandala. So for 3D mandala, you don't need any special art supplies, just the regular ones that you use for your regular mandala art. So we are going to make an A4 size artwork, so make sure that you have a white A4 size sheet. Now I am using ivory sheet, which is something around 200 GSM, and it is a very smooth paper for any sort of artwork, especially for mandalas. If you don't have ivory paper, feel free to use any kind of drawing paper that you usually use. It can be your regular printer paper as well, which is something around 80 to 100 GSM, or bond paper or cartridge sheets, or any of the drawing paper that you have. You can also use sketching paper or acrylic painting paper, or even Bristol paper. So whatever you have works fine for a 3D mandala. So I am taking the A4 size sheet, ivory sheet right here. So we are going to use that. So A4 size is very important for this particular artwork. You can also make the artwork on A5 or A3 sheet, but since the grid and all the measurements would be according to the A4 size paper, so make sure that you take an A4 size paper. That will be perfect. Now apart from that, we need our regular mandala art supplies, which is a pencil, a ruler. So you can use any of the rulers, the big one or the small one. You need a pencil. Now since I usually use mechanical pencil for drawing purposes, so I use mechanical pencil. So take whatever pencil you use. Mechanical pencil basically makes the grid very sharp, and it helps in those light strokes, so that it's easy for you to erase the grid later. So if you don't have mechanical pencil, that's perfectly fine. So whatever pencil you use for drawing, that will be perfect. And then we also need a protractor. So this is the 360-degree protractor, and this is the 180-degree protractor. Now for mandala art, any of the protractors is fine. We need protractors for marking the points and making the grid for our mandala. So if you have 360-degree this protractor, it will be very easy and convenient for you. But if you have your regular 180-degree protractor, that will be perfectly fine. So whatever you have, just pick that up. Then we also need a compass. Now this is a MAPED technical compass that I always use, so I am using that. So the advantages of technical compass is that you get to use it with pen, and you also have this stopper, which makes the drawing of the circles very convenient and very easy. So technical compass has its own pros and cons, but you can also use your regular compass. We just need it to draw some circles. So whichever compass you have, feel free to pick that. And apart from that, we also need an eraser, and especially for 3D mandala, you also need an HB pencil. So this basically is an Apsara Triga pencil. So some sort of this kind of I would suggest you to take this kind of pencil, because for 3D mandala we would be needing this sort of pencil as well, because the thing I will explain all the procedure later why we need this pencil, but we would need it for some shading and adding that 3D effect. So that won't be possible using a mechanical pencil. So for that you need this kind of pencil. I won't ask you to take a specific dimension or specific nib size or HP pencil. Any sort of this pencil, this kind of pencil, which can be used for shading purposes, just pick that pencil up and you will be good to go. So for 3D mandala especially, you will need this kind of pencil. And then we just need black pens. So for 3D mandala, we never use colored pens. Actually we can use, but it actually I'll explain the variations later. But in this particular course, we are focusing on the 3D effect using just the black and gray shades and colors. So you just need some black pens. If you have your fine liners, that's perfect. There is no specific brand of fine liners that you would need. The ones that you use regularly would be perfectly fine. And if you don't have any such fine liners, feel free to use your regular black gel pens for that purpose. Don't use sketch pens or markers, because the nib of sketch pens and markers is very wide, and that won't be convenient for you to draw the mandala. Any sort of fine liners or gel pens would be perfectly fine. So these are all the supplies that we would be needing for our 3D mandala. So let's first discuss the grid for the 3D mandala. So the grid for 3D mandala is somewhat different from your regular mandalas. So first of all, as usual, we are going to find the midpoint of the paper. So as you know, this is the A4 size paper. So for finding the midpoint, just we need to draw a vertical and a horizontal line, and the intersection point of these two these two lines will be the midpoint. So the length of this A4 size paper is 30 centimeter. So divide 30 centimeter by 2. Basically the half of 30 centimeter would be 15 centimeter. Now you can use this procedure of finding the midpoint in any of the kind of papers that you have. Even if you are using like A5 sheet or A3 sheet or even a square paper, this method applies to all sorts of paper that you have. So 30 centimeter, we are going to mark a point at 15 centimeter. Now for horizontally, keep your ruler at the marked point, and then the width of the paper is 21 centimeter. Divide it by 2. Basically the half would be 10.5 centimeter. So basically this is your midpoint of the entire paper. So draw a horizontal line like this, and then at 10.5 centimeter draw the vertical line. So in this way, it's very easy for you to find the midpoint of any kind of paper, and this is the most accurate way to find the midpoint of the paper. So I'll just share the procedure once more. The length of the paper is 30 centimeter. Divide it by 2, you will get 15 centimeter. So mark a point at 15 centimeter, and then keep your ruler at that 15 centimeter marked point, and the width of the paper is 21 centimeter. Divide it by 2, it will be 10.2 centimeter. So basically you drew a vertical line and then a horizontal line, and the intersection point of these 2 points is your midpoint of the paper. So in this way you can find the midpoint of any kind of paper and any dimension, be it square or rectangle or your A4 size, A3 size, A5 size, whatever. So it actually depends upon the length and width of your paper. Just divide the length by 2 and divide the width by 2, and then you will be able to find the midpoint. So we have found the midpoint. Now you are going to take your compass and use a pencil. If you are using a technical compass, use the pencil. Now we are going to draw some circles. Now there is no specific dimension and the radius of the circle. So basically we are going to draw the outer circles first. So here I am just taking a random radius which is something around 5 centimeter. Feel free to just experiment, because in 3D mandala you don't need to have a specific radius or a specific size of the circles. You can just experiment it and add as many layers as you want. So I'm just taking a very random radius which would be something around 5 to 6 centimeter, and I'm going to draw a circle, right? So this circle, inside this circle we are going to draw the 3D part of the mandala, and outside this circle we are going to draw the usual mandala. So after that feel free to just use the entire space that you have and add as many layers as you want. So now just keep your compass point at the midpoint. Now we are going to draw concentric circles, just as we do in the usual mandalas. So what are concentric circles? Basically the circles which are drawn from the same midpoint. Now keep your compass at the same midpoint, extend your compass a little bit. Now here you have the choice, you can either just draw one layer or draw 2 layers, 3 layers, whatever you want. Feel free to just experiment with that. I am taking like something around 1.5 centimeter gap between the two circles, and then I am going to draw another circle like this, and continue this process, and you can add as many circles as you want. Just just feel free to do that, and you can just experiment with the the layers of the circles and the radius as well. So since this is an A4 size paper, I had pretty good amount of space. I added 3 layers. So basically this portion is going to be the inside of the 3D mandala. So basically this is going to be our 3D portion, and this portion right here is going to be our usual mandala. Now once you have done this, what are you going to do is just take your ruler and keep it in the midpoint, on the midpoint, and just draw a slant diagonal line. Now again this slant diagonal line can be at any point. You can either do it like this or do it like that. So there is no specific, I would say, angle to this diagonal line. We just need it for reference. So just draw a diagonal line. Just make sure that if you are drawing a diagonal line right here, just make sure that it is at as equal distance as possible, so that basically just helps you in the symmetry. Now when you are drawing the 3D mandala inside, now just focus on the procedure, because it's going to be a little different from your usual mandalas. Now this point is going to be our vanish point, you can say, or the focal point, the focus point, the main point from where the 3D effect starts and even ends. So you can call it the vanish point. So make sure that you mark a little point right here to make sure that you are referring to this point right here. Okay, now moving on, just align your ruler like this, starting from 0. Okay, now mark points at every 0.5 centimeter. You can also take 1 centimeter, but the effect that we are going to give to this 3D mandala would be the best when you take 0.5 centimeter. So we are just going to mark points at every 0.5 centimeter. So 0.5, then 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5 and 5. Like you can see, we already have marked a point. So mark points at every 0.5 centimeter. Feel free to pause or rewind the video if you need if you need to see the process again, and feel free to pause until you have drawn till here, and then you can move on to the next procedure. Now for convenience, let's just number all these points so that we can easily understand, starting from the lower one. This is the vanish point, so I'm not going to just name it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Now I have like numbered these going from the vanish point, so that it's easy for us to understand the procedure. Now take your compass, and now you need to make circles. Now we are going to start from the third point. Leave the first and second point. Keep your compass point at the third point, and the radius would be the distance between the third and the vanish point, like this. Okay, so now as you can see that the basic procedure of drawing the mandala is totally different right here, and we are not using the regular concentric circles and using the grid etc method. So now just leave the first and second point and take the third point. Okay, and the radius is what? The distance between the third and the vanish point. And then draw a tiny circle Now you can also choose the second point as the center for your circle. Feel free to experiment that as well. So this is your first circle. Okay, now remember that you started with the third point, and now just keep on going 1 point or 2 points further to like draw more circles. Now you started with the third point, now come to the fourth point. Now the radius, as you go up, the radius also keeps on increasing. Now again the radius would be the distance between fourth point and the vanish point, like this. So in this case we are increasing the radius and the as we are moving up. Now just draw a very carefully, draw another circle like this. Now you can see that these kind of circles are totally different from the usual concentric circles, right? Now this is the foundation through which we will be drawing our 3D mandala very easily. So you use the third point first and then you moved up to the fourth point. Now similarly we are going to do the same process in all the points till we reach the this area. So now move on to the fifth point and again increase your radius, the distance between fifth point and the vanish point, and draw another circle. Feel free to pause and rewind if you need if you need more time. Now repeat the same process. Sixth point, increase the radius. Now the radius is the distance between sixth point and vanish point, and draw circle again. Then move on to the seventh point. Again increase the radius. Now for this, basically all the layers of the circles that we are making, they are vanishing at this point, hence we have named it vanish point. Now move on to the eighth point. Again increase the radius and draw another circle. Now ninth point, again the same process, and like this. And the 10th point. Now the 10th is the last point in this case, and the last circle. So you see that with every point we like have different sort of circles that give us that 3D effect. So I'll just repeat the process once again. You started with the third point and you just drew a circle using the radius as the distance between your third and the vanish point. So basically this was the distance. Then you moved up. Now the radius was distance between fourth and the vanish point. And in this way you just kept on moving until the time you reach the 10th point, and here the radius was the distance between 10th and the vanish point, and you just drew a circle. So basically all of these circles are just meeting at this point and basically vanishing, so that it gives that 3D effect, hence we have named this as the vanish point. Now when you have completed this, just erase the numbers if you had any, so that we can move on to the further procedure of drawing the grid, etc. You can also erase this line because we just needed this line for drawing the circles. So in this way our sketch of the 3D mandala is ready. Now we can move on to the grid making process. Now to draw the grid in 3D mandala, we need the protractor, but here you have to remember that the grid in these outer portions will be different than the grid in the inside portion, right? So basically this is your 3D portion. Just like the circles that we made in this portion, it had a entire new steps and entire new procedure. The grid making will also be different for the outer portion and for the inner portion. So let's look at the process. Now take your protractor, feel free to take 180 degrees or 360-degree protractor. Now just align it, keep it in the keep it on the midpoint. Now make sure that this point of your protractor is on the midpoint that you drew earlier for your paper. Make sure that it is aligned. Now mark points at every 10 degrees. Now 10 degrees is the standard mandala grid. You can also use 5 degrees, 20 degrees or 30 degrees. Feel free to experiment, but for this particular design we are making 10 degrees grid. So make sure to stick with that till the entire course is completed. If you want, you can also use the 20 degrees grid, but once you have, I would suggest you that once you have completed the the entire design, you can just experiment it later on. So align the protractor and mark points at every 10 degrees. Now make sure that you are marking points in the outer layers. So 10, 20, 30, 40. In this way we are just going to mark points at every 10 degrees throughout the circle. Feel free to pause and rewind if you need more time. So we have marked points at every 10 degrees. Now very carefully just observe the procedure of drawing the grid. Now take your ruler and keep it aligned. So make sure that this point and this point, they are opposite to each other and your ruler is on the midpoint of the paper. It should not be like this because the grid won't be symmetrical then, and it should also not be like this. So make sure every time you are drawing the lines for your grid, the point and the opposite point, these go through the midpoint. Okay, now align it, but in this case very carefully just observe the process. In this case you just have to draw the line in this outer portion and then this outer portion. So usually in mandalas, the regular mandalas, we just draw lines like this because we want to divide the entire circle into equal parts. Okay, but in this case we have outer portion of your mandala and the inside portion of your mandala, which is totally different. So the grid making process will also be different. So make sure that you don't draw the lines over this inside portion. So I'll show you once again. Just align your ruler with these 2 points and then draw line here and then draw line here. So basically this is your regular mandala portion, hence the grid is also regular. So just take your time and just make all the lines as needed. Make sure to take your own time. So this is the usual mandala grid that we make, so don't worry about that. Just make sure that the line does not cross the inside portion of the 3D design. The grid is going to be different in the 3D portion. So in this way we are going to continue the process of drawing the grid in the outer portions of your mandala. So we are going to do the same in this area as well. So 10 degrees is actually the standard one. If you want, you can like experiment with 5 degrees and 20 degrees as well, but I would suggest you to stick to 10 degrees for this particular design, and why you will just know eventually when we will just proceed further. Make sure that every time you are drawing a line, it goes through the midpoint. Although you are not drawing the line that is going through the midpoint, but it basically should go through the midpoint. So this is the outer portion of your 3D mandala grid is ready. This is the usual mandala grid that we make. So this was the grid that we made for the outer portion of the 3D mandala, and it is the usual regular mandala grid. Now to draw the grid for the inside portion, we have to remember that this is the midpoint and this is the vanish point of your grid. So just like this was the midpoint of the grid in the outer portion, outer area, this is the midpoint for all your circles in the inside portion, and this is going to be the midpoint for your grid in the inside portion as well. Now how we are going to draw the grid, let's look at that. Now just align your ruler in this particular point. Forget about all other points at this at this point. Just forget about all other points and just remember that this is the vanish point. Now if you are we'll start from this particular point. Now when you are drawing the grid, align your ruler in this particular way, like this. So this line, this point, align your ruler in this way that you are able to draw a line that is meeting the vanish point in this way. So erase the this middle line. Let's just erase this middle line, because anyways the work that we needed, the reference is complete. This might create some confusion, so let me just erase this horizontal and vertical line as well from the midpoint. So this way. So this is your one grid. Now we are going to continue this process. Take the lines that you made in the outer portion as reference and align it with the vanish point right here, and then draw the line. So this is going to be the grid for your inside portion. You can see that how we are proceeding further. Now when you are just coming downwards, you will see that the area is reducing when we are moving towards the vanish point, and that's the look we are making in this 3D mandala. So just keep on drawing lines. Feel free to pause and rewind if you need more time. So in this way you will see that the lines that you are making, they are vanishing when they are coming at the vanish point. Hence we have named it, obviously, just like the circles. Now again let's continue. Align your ruler at this point and just keep it on the vanish point and draw lines. Now hence I was suggesting you to continue with the 10 degrees grid. 20 degrees grid would be perfectly fine. But the 5 degrees grid, what would have happened is that you won't be able to draw the lines that we are drawing here won't be would be like overlapping to each other. So you won't be able to draw your basic shapes and patterns. So stick to 10 degrees grid or more than that, but it shouldn't be like too much. So the standard grid would be fine. So just remember that for the inside portion, this is the midpoint, this is the vanish point, and for the outside portion, this was the midpoint. So in this way, the grid for your inside portion is also ready, and the grid for your outside portion is also ready. So you might you can now see that the 3D effect is somehow coming in this particular grid as well. So that's how we can easily draw 3D mandala grid and the inside portion and the outside portion. Now if you don't want the outside portion, you can just take 1 or 2 layers and just make this portion a little bigger as well. So feel free to experiment with the sizes and the grids once you have completed this course. So the grid for our 3D mandala is completely ready. Now we will move on to the further steps of drawing the patterns and shapes and the shading as well. Now we are going to draw the basic shapes and patterns in the entire mandala. So we are going to draw and complete this portion right here, the 3D portion, and then we are going to move outwards. So when you have completed this course, feel free to just experiment, and if you feel comfortable, you can also just complete the outer portion first and then the 3D portion later. So that actually depends it actually depends on you totally. Feel free to do that, but in this particular course we are starting with this area first, and then we are going to move forward. Now, as I already told you that for this particular design I am just using black pens. If you want to use colored pens, so for the shading effect, you would need pencil colors, depending upon the colors that you have used. So for example, if you are drawing a red mandala and you want to give that 3D effect, you have to use a red pencil color of the same shade. So that's again a variation that you must try once you have completed this course. But for this course we are sticking to the black and the shades of gray, because that's the most beautiful way to showcase the 3D mandala and that effect. So let's just start with this particular portion. Now, to draw basic shapes and patterns in this particular portion, I'm going to just tilt it a little bit, because basically the 3D mandala, the inside portion is basically facing the vanish point, the main point is here, and it is going in this direction basically. So for this particular area, as you can see that the spaces right here, the sections, they are pretty small as compared to the usual mandala or the outer portions, and it's also vanishing right here. Okay, so what we have to make sure that we are making such patterns that we are able to adjust at this portion as well. So now we are going to take just very simple basic shapes and geometrical patterns to fit in this particular area. You can also take any of the patterns etc. that you have in your mind. So if you want to learn about mandala patterns in detail, feel free to enroll for my mandala patterns master course, or if you just need some patterns for mandala pattern repository, you can also get my mandala patterns ebook. So in this course we are not going to discuss about the mandala patterns per se, because I have made an entire course on that. We are just going to focus on the procedure to create your 3D mandala. So let's just start with the basic shapes. For this outer portion, I am taking the usual basic shape, the inverted U kind of basic shape. Feel free to take any. Now in this particular area, usually what we have, like if you can see the outer portion, all of the sections are symmetrical to each other, but in this case it's not symmetrical. So you just have to fill in the particular area and move as as you are moving towards the vanish point. So you can see that the basic shape right here is tilted in this particular angle. That's because we are making a 3D effect, and for that you have to follow the shape and size of the grid as well. So just keep on moving and adjust the size and shape of the pattern that you are making according to the area that you have. So you can see that the shape and size and even the angle of the basic shape is changing as we move downwards. So that's the effect that we are able to create easily through our 3D mandala grid. Now this is very different from your regular mandalas. So very carefully just draw your basic shape. You just have to fill in the area and move along as as per the grid that you made. Hence the grid is very important part of any sort of mandala, because that gives us the reference. So when you come down, you can see that the pattern is almost vanishing, as we named this point vanish point. Okay, now you can continue drawing these kind of patterns, or you can also draw some more geometrical patterns. So for this particular design I am sticking to this basic shape only. So now I am going to draw the basic shape and continue drawing, continue doing the same thing that we did in the first layer. Feel free to use any other basic shape or geometric pattern you have in mind, and take your own time. You can pause the video, you can watch it later. So If you don't feel comfortable, feel free to use a pencil to draw all the basic shapes and patterns first, and then just outline it later using a pen. Now when you just come at this point, you can just leave it as it is, because anyhow in this area we are going to do some shading. So I am just going to draw the same basic shape in this particular section, and I am going to repeat the process here. Now keep on drawing your basic shape. Now as you move downwards and move closer towards the vanish point, you can see that the size of the grid is decreasing. So that is the effect that we want to create in the 3D mandala. Be careful at this point, because as we move downwards and towards the vanish point, this keeps on reducing more and more. Now you can also take two sections when you are just reaching downwards, but since we are like trying to make a really cool 3D effect right here, I am going to stick to just one section for this as well. So feel free to experiment and take two grids as well and see what works for you. You can see that how the effect is coming together and it's looking really cool as we move downwards. Trust me, you will be shocked to see how easy was it to draw a 3D mandala. It just looks intimidating at first, but when you just break down the process into smaller steps, it is very easy to draw any kind of mandala for that matter. Now you can take two sections as well, because here the width of the the grid is reducing, so you can also do that. So when you reach this particular point, you can take two sections as per your choice. Make sure that you are drawing as per the grid and not overlapping. Now this particular circle for 3D mandala, just outline it very carefully. Go small, take small steps. Now this particular circle is going to be colored entirely black, because we need to show that vanish point. So we are just going to leave it for the end. Now you can see that at this portion we have not drawn much. Now we can just draw a little like tiny patterns right here, so that we can just complete the entire layering, like just some tiny final touches right here, because it's anyhow the vanish point. So basically you can understand it like all the patterns just vanished at this point. So in this way you draw all the basic shapes for your inside mandala. Now talking about the patterns and motifs that we are going to use in the inside mandala. So as you can see that the basic shapes that we have used, they are of really small size. So we need to use such sort of patterns and motifs that just do justice to this effect. So what are we going to do is, I'm going to do alternate layers. So for example, I'll start with this layer, and for this particular layer I'm using this line pattern. This is a very simple geometrical pattern that you can find in my mandala patterns master course, and some variations as well, and you can also find this pattern in my mandala patterns ebook. So feel free to check that out too as per your convenience. If you have any other mandala pattern, if you have your own mandala pattern repository, that's really good. So make sure that you choose your favorite pattern from that your mandala pattern repository. And if you I would suggest you to go for very simple minimalistic geometrical patterns for the inside portion. Don't go for highly intricate or layered patterns, because it will be very chaotic and the 3D effect won't be won't look nice at this portion. So stick to very simple geometrical patterns for this particular area for the inside mandala. And feel free to experiment and try with mandala patterns as well. So you can choose any of the patterns. And for this particular section, basically for the next layer, I'm just going to draw the same basic shape inside and just fill it in like this. So basically this is the first layer, this is the second layer, and I'm going to draw alternate in this alternate way. So let's just enjoy the process. Now this will take some time, so feel free to take a break or come back later. And if you just want, you can just play some music in the background and just enjoy drawing the mandala patterns in silence. Make sure that you enjoy the process. So we are just going to draw the patterns layer by layer. Now make sure that even the patterns that you are drawing inside, they are aligning with the grid that you have made. So the alignment and symmetry becomes more important in a 3D mandala, particularly in this section, because the alignment basically is vanishing at a certain point. So at this point there will be very tiny patterns. So make sure to just take your time, pause the video if you need to, and just draw the patterns calmly. So in this particular mandala, basically this entire section, alignment is more important than symmetry, because to be honest, these patterns are not that mandala symmetrical. They are vanishing, and they are reducing in size, and also the angle is tilting. So basically it's the alignment and vanish point that you have to ensure. Now I am going to draw this in the alternate spaces. So like I will move to the third layer quickly. So at this point there will be like almost no pattern, because it's anyhow vanishing. So it's okay if you are like not drawing any pattern, or it's just vanishing at this point. So just enjoy the process calmly, take your own time, use your own patterns. So now I'm going to complete all the layers one by one in the same way. Feel free to take a break if you want to. Pause, rewind, come back later, or just play some music in the background while you are following along with me in this process. Now when you have completed these alternate layers, now we are going to move to the other alternate layers as well. So for the the second, fourth, sixth and eighth layer, I have chosen just a replica of the basic shape and just coloring it inside, so that we have a like balance maintained between the layers. So you can also draw the same pattern in all the layers, or just you can also experiment, like you can draw different patterns in all the different layers, or you can draw the same pattern in all the different layers, or you can also go alternate like this. So make sure that if you want to experiment, feel free to do that, because the patterns won't much affect your design. So at this point, just be a little careful. So you can see that here is a very good balance that has been maintained in both the layers. So choose patterns accordingly. Now for this particular alternate route, what we are going to do is we are also going to just outline the the circular lines, so that our layers are well differentiated from each other as well. So make sure to do this, and fill in this white portion of the previous layer as well. So this basically divides. This is an optional step. It actually depends upon the type of patterns that you are using, but this step basically highlights the layers and differentiates them from each other like this. So now we are going to move on to the next layer. Just draw the outline first, or you can also draw it later. Now just follow along in the process. We are almost complete. We have reached the last layer, so just that outlining, and then we will be done with all the basic shapes and patterns part of the 3D mandala. So you can see that as you move downwards, the shape and angle of your basic shapes and patterns also changes. So make sure to maintain that alignment and make sure to adjust according to the grid. So now as you can see that the basic shapes and the patterns portion is complete. Now you just have to do this outer lining as well, so that we like have a complete circle to do the shadows as well. make sure to make a pretty thick outline so that the inside mandala is very well differentiated from the outside mandala. And once you are done with this one, just fill this entire area. Now you can just erase all the pencil lines first and then complete it. Now we are just going to erase any other pencil lines if we have, so that we can just move forward. So don't erase the outside grid, just erase the inside if you see any pencil lines there and then. Now once you have completed this, just fill this entire area with black color, or if you are using any other color, make sure to use that. So we are just going to fill this because this is like the center point, the vanish point, and to have that 3D effect we need to make sure that it's completely filled in. So in this way we have now completed the entire drawing of the inside mandala. Now we are going to add the 3D effect to this particular area, and for that you will need that regular HB pencil that I talked about in the first session. So for that you will be needing this. Now this is the most interesting and the most important part of your 3D mandala, and you can use it in all the other variations of 3D mandala as well. So basically to add that depth and to add that 3D effect, we are going to use pencil and we are going to basically add the shading. So as I already told you that this is the vanish point, so you have to understand that basically this is the vanish point. So you can just imagine it like a deep point wherein all the patterns are like vanishing or like shrinking. So if you just see a regular some sort of well or anything like that, you will see that as you go inside it gets darker and darker, and if you like see from the lower portion, like it is darker from the lower portion and it comes to lighter in the above portion. So basically we have to create that effect that it's getting darker as we move at this point. This is the vanish point, and if we move upwards it's getting lighter and lighter. So for that you will need a pencil, and you will also need a Q-tip for this. So to add the shading you will need the regular HB pencil and a Q-tip. You can also call it an earbud. So basically this Q-tip helps in basically adding the shading effect and the pencil effect. You can use, if you don't have this, you can just use your fingers. I will show you both the methods to add that, but this basically works as a blender when you are using pencil shading. So if you do pencil sketching and if you know about that and you have a blender, feel free to use that. But if you don't have, you can either use your fingers or you can use like this Q-tip. So now let's just begin. So first of all, just create like a like a tiny arc right here with your pencil till the point where you want that dark vanish effect, and do the same in this area as well. So basically we are like creating a half moon kind of area just for a guideline like this. Now we are going to like slowly add the pencil shading. Make sure that you don't go outside the layer, and just add the darker shade in the lower portion like this. So just keep it as dark as possible. And do the same here as well. So whatever you are doing at this portion, make sure to maintain that symmetry and do it in this portion as well. So keep it dark. So basically this is your vanish point, so it now gets lighter as you move upward. So as you move upward, so do the pencil shading, continue the pencil shading here as well, and just apply pressure and make sure that it's dark enough. So just follow along with me and observe. I would suggest you that you watch the entire process first and then start shading, replay the video and then start shading. Now you have to apply a little bit shade above this black portion as well. So you can see that I'm adding, like I'm making a moon, crescent moon kind of a shape using the pencil. So it must be dark because this is the vanish point, so make sure that you are applying like layers of pencil shading at this point in this area. So basically whatever patterns you have drawn in this area, they will sort of like vanish, but that's the look that we want to give, that it's visible but not entirely visible, not properly visible. So now use your Q-tip and just blend it like this in circular motion so that we like have a shaded effect like this. So if you don't have a Q-tip or this earbud, make sure to use your fingers like this. Just blend it and just make that shaded effect. Now at this point, from this point basically we are going to add shading, but just apply a little less pressure than you applied in the earlier areas. Now you know that this is your vanish point, so you will have like dark shades, and just now slowly blend it using a little less pressure, and just you hold your pencil like this so that you can just add like a slighter light pressure. So basically now you are just going from dark gray to like light grays and so on. So just follow along, observe first, and then you can just draw your own shading. Now you can also experiment with the amount of shading as well. If you want a bigger vanish point, you can like do that as well. But now we are just going to blend and apply shadows. So basically just use your pencil like this, and at this point you will just add lesser pressure. So basically just a little less pressure and just the usual shading, and then we will just adjust it. So this is basically the base of the shading that we are making. So basically when you are moving inside, just make sure that the shade gets lighter and lighter. So just draw and blend. Use your fingers to blend or use the cotton swabs. I'll show you both the ways. So then again in the middle portion do a lighter shading so that it comes together. So basically in the middle portion we are adding a much lighter pencil shade. Now just blend it all inside using your finger so that all of it is blend, and then we are just going to adjust everything. Let's add a little shade right here as well. Now we are just going to complete this shading part. So you can also increase or reduce the vanish point, the vanish effect right here. So just add a little more shade. Just basically we are like going dark from light in this direction. So basically this is your vanish point, this is dark, and that it gets lighter in the middle. So just making sure that the shading is to the point. Just some final touches and we are just done with the shading part as well. So in this way, by using some pencil shading, you can just simply add the 3D effect to your mandalas. So basically the shading effect needs to be aligned. So for example, in this particular design, the vanish point is right here. So basically we want that effect that it's darker at this point and then it gets lighter and lighter. So depending upon that and keeping that in mind, we have made the shadows. Now the shadows and the 3D effect might differ from depending upon your design as well. So feel free to just experiment with the amount of shadow in this vanish point as well, and also just try different variations of the shadow as well. Now if you can see that this basically this looks like something is going inside and it gives a really good 3D effect. I'm also going to show you from a different angle as well. So basically when you just see the design from a different angle, like for example if I just tilt the paper, you can see that it gives such a nice 3D effect to your mandala design. So basically this is how you can add the 3D effect in any of your design. Basically we just created a vanish point and add some shading, so it looks like something is falling inside. So even if you look from a different angle, so if you like look from this angle, it looks like something is falling on the right hand side, and just try looking at it from different angles, so you can see that how cool it looks. So basically you might feel that this is too intimidating or it might be difficult, but just breaking down the entire process into a few simple steps, you are definitely be able to draw this kind of 3D mandala. So now we are going to move on to the further steps to complete this mandala. So for the outer portion we are going to just draw a regular mandala, as I already told you that the main this is the main 3D portion of a 3D mandala, and the outside it totally depends on you. So basically you can add as many layers as you want, you can use any of the basic shapes. So I'm just going to use the the water drop the floral basic shape in all of these layers, and just use some of the patterns. So as I already told you that we are not going to discuss about the basic shapes and patterns in this particular course, because this is a course dedicated to 3D mandala, and I have a course, a full entire master course dedicated to patterns and motifs. So if you want you can check that out, but let's just start drawing the basic shapes one by one. So now I am using this particular basic shape, you can use any of them. And now we are just taking one section and then we are just going to draw a regular mandala like this. So just follow along and just take your own time. Feel free to draw a mandala outside as per your choice. Feel free to use your own basic shapes and patterns of your choice, and feel free to pause, take a break and come back later. Feel free to play some music in the background if you want to, or just enjoy the process in silence. So this is the basic shape that I made for the first layer, and I am going to use the same basic shape in the other two layers as well. So now for the second layer, you can either just go on as we were going in the first layer. You can just take this this particular section and just move on, or you can just use alternate. So basically use this point and then use this these 2 points as the starting and end point. So basically in my mandala art for beginners course I have discussed the different types of layering in mandala art as well. So if you feel confused, you can just go through the beginners mandala course as well before starting this, because this is a little advanced version, and if you already know mandala art, then you know what I'm talking about, this layering. So feel free to add patterns and join the layers as per your choice. So like this we have also completed the second layer, and we are going to move on to the third layer. So like this you can just make a full page mandala as well, or you can add just 2 layers or just 1 layer, or like more layers of your choice. So the outside mandala totally depends upon you, how many layers you want to add, what kind of patterns and basic shapes, because it is anyhow a regular mandala. So just feel free to do what makes you comfortable. So this is the layout and the basic shape of the outer mandala. Now when you have completed drawing all the basic shapes in all the layers, I suggest you to add a second layer, a second outlining, because this is an optional step, but this basically makes your motifs and patterns stand out and also highlights all the layers. So it actually depends upon how you draw mandalas, but I would suggest you to do this every time you draw a mandala, any type of mandala, because this basically highlights all your patterns and motifs, and the the layers are very well differentiated with each other, and the entire mandala looks very neat and clean instead of a set of patterns just combined together. Now we are going to do the same in the other 2 layers as well. Feel free to skip this step if you are not used to adding outlines and you feel like you don't need to add, but I would suggest you to do that. But again, it actually depends upon your style as well. Make sure to pause the video if you need more time. I'm going to do the same in the last layer as well. So the outer mandala basic shapes and layering is complete. Now we will move on to the fillers, motifs and patterns. Now just like we made the basic shapes, now we are just going to add all the motifs and patterns. Feel free to choose and draw any of the patterns of your choice. You can just just fill it with some colors, or just use your black pen or any of the mandala patterns. You can either have your own mandala patterns from your own repository, or you can also just refer the patterns from the mandala pattern book as well. So for this particular design, I'm just going to start with a pretty simple lines pattern that I used in the inside as well. So let's start with that. And then for this particular layer, I'm going to use this particular motif. So a circle used with some floral pattern, and then for the last layer I am going to use a combination of two motifs which makes a pattern. So feel free to choose any pattern, and now we are just going to complete the entire mandala layer by layer. So follow along and feel free to choose your own pattern, and we are just going to complete the mandala in silence. You can play some music in the background as well, or you can complete the mandala later as well. So now I'm just going to draw all the patterns one by one in all the layers. Just follow along with me and feel free to choose your own patterns as well. With this, the first layer of the outer mandala is complete. Now we are going to move on to the second layer of our mandala and draw the patterns. Now again you can choose any of other patterns if you have something in mind, and you can also like add more petals to this particular motif as well. Take your own time, pause if you need more time. So with this, our second layer of the outer mandala is also complete. Now for the third layer also I have chosen a combination motif pattern. So we are just going to complete the third layer as well. You can also use the same pattern in all the three layers or alternate patterns, just like we did in the inside 3D mandala, or you can just choose any of the patterns of your choice. Make sure to take your own time in drawing the patterns. Feel free to pause, take break whenever you need to. You don't need to complete the entire design in one go. And with this, all the layers of our outside mandala is complete. And feel free to add color or any other motif in this particular section, or you can leave it as it is. It gives a really good floral effect as well. So feel free to experiment with the design. Now regarding the final touches, I am just going to erase all the pencil lines and the grid to just complete the mandala. You can also draw a full page mandala, or you can just stick to this design, these number of layers as well. Feel free to experiment. While erasing the grid, be careful, don't erase the pencil shading that you did in the 3D mandala portion. So this is it. Now we have completed the 3D mandala as well.